Accidents this morning, and as we take a look at the Langley Roofing traffic cameras, so far the interstate is still looking good. If you see a traffic problem, give us a call. The volunteer Ridipest mix line is 614-6499. You can also text us at that same number on the Cleveland State Cougar line. We'll check your Mermaid Mattress Weather Center forecast coming up.
This traffic report is brought to you by L&B Appliance, your one-stop appliance shop, locally owned and operated, Durkee Road at Highway 64 in Cleveland. 423-339-3231.
Again, the major national news this morning, the mid-air collision around 9 o'clock last night with an American Airlines regional jet, which is called American Eagle, colliding with a Black Hawk helicopter. It is believed that all 64 people are dead in the Potomac River last night. It is now a search and recovery operation, and we carried a press conference earlier. And we do have, send him on in. We have Jim Hall. Jim Hall, who we have interviewed several times over the years. Jim Hall is the former chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. Good morning, Mr. Hall. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I was a little sad this morning.
Jim,
with the result of the events in Washington.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't thank you enough for joining us. You were the highest-ranking official when it came to airline crashes like these. Let me ask you this, sir. What are maybe the first things that happen in an investigation when something like this takes place?
Well, the aviation industry has spent decades looking at trying to address near misses or runway collisions, an accident similar to this. And of course, we've had a excellent run of aviation safety on any commercial aviation in the United States. So this is going to be a very important investigation, as all are. And they will start looking, obviously, they're still in the recovery portion of the investigation. But at the NTSB office, as you know, where I worked, is within walking distance of this accident site. And so they're working this morning, I'm sure, trying to gather, obviously, all the information they can and background on the aircraft, the flight operations that evening, any similar incidents or accidents that have occurred in the D.C. area. So they're just doing basic background information work as we speak.
We're joined by Jim Hall. Jim Hall was appointed by President Clinton as the chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board in November of 1994, and we're honored to have him on here this morning. Jim, I'm wondering now, we don't hear of mid-air collisions very often in this country. This obviously a Black Hawk helicopter colliding with this passenger jet. I mean, this is one would say shocking, really, Jim, that this would happen.
Yes, and this is not an unusual traffic in the D.C. area. It's a very, busy corridor. There's specific rules and regulations to address exactly how commercial and military aviation interface, and air traffic control handles these communications. So all of that's going to have to be addressed because obviously we need to learn from this event. We're going to have very crowded skies in the future, even more crowded than we've had, and with the introduction of jet taxis and drones. So we've got to try and learn and glean everything we can from this horrible tragedy. But of course, our first thoughts this morning are with the families, because we set up the Family Assistance Program at the NTSB when I was chairman, just to address and provide communications and support to the family members and who are just trying to adjust to the tragedy that they have experienced.
Tell me a little more about that program, Jim, that you set up there. What does that mean for the families?
At the time, in the 1990s, there was no program to provide coordinated information and support to the families. And in many cases, unfortunately, there were incidents of the families being taken advantage of at a critical time. So this program has been in place since I served as at the NTSB, and we established it. It reaches out immediately to the family members. It's as there are NTSB officials that are trained to respond to the accident in terms of the investigation. These individuals are trained to provide support and reach out to the families when something like this happens. So they obviously are also at work this morning and coordinating with the other agencies that provide support. That is extremely important. This investigation, of course, will take months, if not years, and there will be important information. But in the meantime, the needs of the family members are immediate, and there is a structure in place to provide them the support that they need at this time.
We are joined by Jim Hall, former NTSB chairman. Jim, obviously one of the major complications here is this crash happened over the Potomac and the freezing water. So not just the unspeakable tragedy for the passengers all concerned, but obviously for the rescuers, that freezing cold. And I'm reminded that you were the chairman when TWA Flight 800 went down over the Atlantic on July 17th of '96. Obviously, that was such a tragedy back then. What's it like when we're dealing with plane crashes over water?
Well, they're very difficult investigations and very difficult tragedies for those involved. This is very similar to the Value Jet accident that happened near the Miami airport while I was there, and also an Alaska Air accident that occurred on the West Coast. So this is makes it very, very difficult, and I've been working to try to ensure that we have deployable flight recorders on these commercial aircraft so that we have the recovery of the recorders, of course, is job one when an event like this occurs. I think most of your listening public knows that there's a flight data recorder that records a whole lot of information and data on these modern aircraft, as well as the voice recorder, which records the cockpit communications and the transmissions back and forth between the air traffic control and the aircraft. So there's a lot of information that was developed as a result of the tragedies in the 90s. It laid the groundwork for the very safe record we've had over the last several decades.
Jim Hall, former chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, has joined us several times over the years when terrible things like this happen. Jim, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Your service to our nation, as well as your experience, and you're just a class act, and I can't thank you enough for calling in this morning.
Well, your friendship to the Cleveland community and our whole southeast Tennessee area is well known, and it's anytime I can be of assistance, or at least of some information based on the wonderful experience that I was provided by President Clinton to try to address aviation safety issues is appreciated.
And by the way, Jim, your friend Tom Rowland says hello, former mayor of Cleveland. He told me to tell you hello, so he's listening.
Well, please tell the mayor I said hello.
Certainly will. Jim Hall.
Cleveland's everybody's home too.
That's right. Jim, you have the absolute best vantage point. I certainly appreciate it so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Jim Hall is, former chairman of the NTSB. Bridget, for perspective's sake, it does not get any better than that.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I mean, this man, as you heard, some of the worst airplane crashes in this nation were in the 90s, quite frankly, and he was right there. All right, so we're gonna transition now to the next hour. If you're just joining us, it is 8:04, Mix 104.1, MixTV.tv. It is a national tragedy at this point. No survivors are believed to have survived a midair collision